Hey guys, Kevin here with etrailer, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Exact Center steering stabilizer here on our F-53 chassis. So if you're driving down the highway in your big Class A motorhome or Class C motorhome and you got that big bulky boxy body and the wind kind of pushes you around, or maybe your steering wheel kind of likes to jerk you one way or the other and just kind of isn't keeping you straight in line, that's where the Roadmaster Exact Center steering stabilizer is going to be the solution for you. And it's also going to help out all those Jeep owners that face that death wobble issue where your steering wheel kind of wobbles back and forth and then kind of throws off your handling and can eventually lead to a car accident. So just driving around a little bit, you can definitely notice the difference in the responsiveness as you turn. You're not having to really struggle to kind of get that over anymore. This is especially a big issue with some of your older model RVs. Once your components start to get kind of worn down, you can really have some trouble trying to really turn that wheel and getting that big body to really adjust around. But here, I mean, we could whip it around the parking lot super easy. I'm not having to strain, and overall that's going to help out as we're driving down the road. I'm not going to be all worn out, and I'm not going to be white knuckling it as I go on my long haul camping trip, or maybe I'm going across country. Whatever I'm doing, I know that that's going to help give me a much more enjoyable ride. So your tie rod keeps your wheels pointed in the exact same direction. So what our steering stabilizer does is kind of keeps them back towards straight. So that way, if you're riding down the highway and you're experiencing high winds, or maybe you just have a top heavy vehicle that you're driving, it kind of wants to keep those wheels just straight so that you don't have to make any extra adjustments or kind of sit there and wobble with your hands when you're trying to steer the vehicle. The nitrogen charged gas spring inside of your Exact Center is going to help prevent any unwanted movement or any wobbling that you might experience before it happens, instead of just trying to yank it back into place after it's already happened. And what that means is that it's going to help prevent that wobble. It's going to give you more responsive steering, and you're not going to have to constantly sit there and kind of move your arms back and forth and add all that strain onto your driving experience. Because the Exact Center helps to maintain that straight line for your front wheels, a lot of people choose this just for their towed vehicle, especially when it comes to Jeeps, because that'll allow you to also maintain that straight line when you're trying to back up. Now, there's a lot of rules that kind of go with that. You can't just totally back up, a huge amount. You really do need to have someone else kind of behind there and checking to make sure that those wheels stay straight. But it does give you a little bit more of an option versus just backing up without it, because if you don't have it and you try to back up, your wheels could start to turn one way and end up destroying your tow bar or kind of kink the vehicle, and just overall isn't going to be a great experience. So there's a couple different models of the Exact Center, and the correct one for your specific application is going to vary on a couple different things. One being the gross vehicle weight rating of your motorhome or vehicle that you're installing it on, and then also how it's going to connect with your brackets is also going to depend on that gross vehicle weight rating, and then just some other kind of minor fitment issues depending on if you have say a V8 or a V10 chassis. Those little things like that can kind of throw a wrench into exactly how everything fits. Roadmaster has a bunch of different guides that kind of explain exactly which one is going to fit, but if you need any help, go ahead, shoot us a question either with our customer service or ask an expert, and we can help you find the correct fit for your application. As far as installation goes, since it is a no drill install, it is super simple. I mean, honestly, the hardest part really is just going to be getting those U-bolts off on your motorhome. But if you have a vehicle, it'd probably be quite a bit easier just because it's not as big, not as heavy. Other than that, you could probably get this in probably 15-20 minutes. So one little trick you can do, if you're going down a straightaway and you have your wheels straight and you just kind of let it find its center, then you can take a piece of tape, run it from the center of your steering column up onto the wheel. As you can see, our wheel is a little bit off, so the alignment on this motorhome is just a tad bit off. So I'm not really going to follow that, but I do know that when I pulled it into our bay here that I do have the wheels straight. So we are going to go ahead and get all set up and get our steering stabilizer put on. So for this install, it is one that you can easily just do on the ground. For us today, just to make it easier for the camera, we do have it lifted up by the wheels, so it still is simulating that it is on the ground. But like I said, super simple. You could easily just get yourself a creeper and roll under to access this area. But let's go ahead and get started with our installation. So when we look at our passenger side, there's going to be 2 U-bolts, and we are going to be wanting to use the back ones because we're going to be hooking up our bracket right here. As you can see, these bolts are a tiny bit rusty. If you definitely have an older model that's been out in the rain and everything, it's going to be way rustier. So you can go ahead and take some penetrating oil. Just kind of get those to unseize. And then you may need to use an air impact drill, or if you do have a big enough breaker bar, you can kind of pull that off. So I'm going to start off with my breaker bar and just see if I can work these loose beforehand. So I'm going to try my impact gun here and just get this off, because these are on here super tight. There we go. So now we're going to take our chassis bracket, which has 3 separate holes. You'll see this elongated hole. That one is going to be facing towards the front of our vehicle, and we're going to actually be sliding that one through our first U-bolt side here. We want to make sure that we have this extra piece that's welded on here pointed down. That's going to kind of level out the exact center running over to our tie rod. So now that we have that up in place, we can go ahead to our washer and our nut back onto our U-bolts, and then we'll torque those back down. So as I'm torquing these back down, we want to make sure that we're alternating back and forth. That way this stays even. We don't want to go too heavy on one side and then have it kind of crooked. There we go. So as far as placement goes, it doesn't really matter which side you put on which side for the chassis bracket or our tie rod bracket. Roadmaster just prefers putting that Roadmaster sticker forward, so on ours we'll have it placed like that. But to attach this to our chassis bracket, what we're going to have to do is take our 3.5-inch bolt. You're going to have a 3-inch and a 3.5. We want to make sure that we grab that 3.5 for our chassis side. So we can go ahead. I already got the nut off. We'll go ahead and throw this up on there. So to attach that to our chassis bracket, we're going to drop our bolt down. We'll then take one of our washers, place that up on there. We can then slide our exact center on, place another washer up there, and then get our nut started on it. We'll just keep that hand tight for right now. We don't need to go crazy until we get our tie rod bracket in place. For our tie rod bracket, we're going to place that under our tie rod and have our U-bolts go over it. We'll then throw our washers on and our nut. And just like with our chassis one, we're just putting this on hand tight for right now because we got to get everything kind of in position before we go ahead and tighten anything down. If you need to, you can kind of just spin that over for the time being and get it set straight. And then we'll throw our other U-bolt in place. All right, with our bracket in place, we can go ahead and grab our 3-inch bolt. I'll pull the washers off of that. And on this one, we're gonna be placing our bolt head on the bottom of our bracket. Then we'll put our washer on. Then we'll drop our exact center onto it. We'll place our second washer up on top and then our nut. So now I'm going to go ahead and start tightening down my bolts just with a wrench, but I want to make sure that I'm keeping my rod bracket pretty level here. That way our exact center is going to be level. So you will just need to go back and forth and kind of play with it just to get it kind of set straight. So I'm going to go ahead and torque down my 1/2-inch bolt that holds it to the tie rod bracket first, and then I'll come back and I'll do my little 3/8 bolts on our U-bolt, or 3/8 nuts. All right. All right, let's torque down. I'm gonna go ahead and torque down our U-bolts as well. I'm gonna alternate back and forth just like I did before. Now with our 1/2-inch bolts and our U-bolts all properly torqued down, that will complete your installation. So if you start to notice that you're kind of pulling more towards the right, you can adjust your exact center by loosening up the jam nut, and you're going to want to hold on to your exact center. At the same time, get that loose. And then we're going to line it up so that the flat end of our jam nut is flat along with our bracket nut here. And then what we're going to do is we'll turn our exact center forward, or actually kind of backwards towards the back of the vehicle or motorhome until we get one turn from the flat side of our jam nut, and then we'll go ahead and tighten that back up. And kind of hold that in place too. So if you notice that you're starting to pull more towards the left, you can also do the same thing over on this side. We'll just loosen up our jam nut, and then we're going to twist that the opposite way towards the front until we are one flat side over, and then we can tighten our jam nut back up. You may have to do a little bit of adjustment here and there just to kind of get things perfect, but this is super easy to do. Just adjust that, go one turn at a time, and then drop your vehicle and test it out, see if you feel like it's driving a little bit more straight. So after test driving this a little bit and stopping, just letting it kind of naturally go with our hands off the wheel, we can see that it's actually lined right back up with our tape that we had originally put on here just to make sure that we are centered. So we know right now that we have our exact center set correctly. If it was kind of off, maybe if our tape was off like that, then we'd know, hey, we have our exact center set a little bit off. Maybe it's leaning one way to the left, maybe to the right, and then we'd have to get down there and kind of adjust the cylinders on there and kind of tighten back our jam nuts just to make sure that it is correctly staying centered so that our wheels are always wanting to drive straight. Well, I think that about does it for today's installation of the Roadmaster Exact Center steering stabilizer here on our F-53 chassis. My name's Kevin. Thanks for watching.